Hey guys, welcome to another GameXplain discussion. I'm your host, Andre Seegers, and this time we're joined by Derek Bittner and Ash Paulson to discuss another Super Smash Bros. Rumor, this time about a supposed Rayman character leak. So let's get started. Alright guys, so this just came out, 3 or 4 supposed image from 4chan showing off what appears to be Rayman in Super Smash Bros. Wii U. Now, we don't see any in-game shots. Instead, what we see, like with Duck Hunt Dog and other character leaks, I believe, we see the character select screen. So we see like a close-up of Rayman, of him joining the battle, of like the unlock screen. And then we see one of him, his character portrait on the character select screen itself. And then we get another one of his box on the character select screen as well. And on top of all this, we get a new picture of the front menu, the main menu for Smash Bros. Showing off a new shop icon. So, with all that out of the way, let's throw it to you guys. What do you think about this? I guess, both, if it's true and do you think it is true?
Well, my usual stance when it comes to these type of leaks is like, I just don't buy it right away because it's so easy to fake this stuff. It's so easy to manipulate it and try to make it work. And why? But here's the question. Why now? Why all of a sudden? Maybe it's because Mewtwo is soon to come out or something like that. So there are fragments here that you could take as truth, especially since we do have the Rayman trophy, and Mewtwo already had a trophy in Smash as well. So there's a lot of possibilities here that could work, but gut feeling right now, it's fake.
My gut feeling is it's too hard to call right now. There are a lot of reasons to believe that it could be legit, and it's actually uncomfortably real to me right now. I don't totally believe that it's legit yet, but I don't know. I mean, if it is a fake, it's an incredibly well-researched fake. I can't source any of the models, or either of the models for Rayman or Mewtwo. They seem to be completely original models. And there was a mock-up that we found on NeoGAF that showed where Mewtwo and Rayman would go in the overall roster. And it kind of checks out pretty easily without too many characters having to be shifted around. So I don't know. It's honestly, it's hard to call this fake, but I'm certainly not going to just jump on it being real. One point to mention is that a few people were calling it fake because there's no drop shadow on the image of Rayman on the character select screen, like on the actual player selection image. And I just wanted to point out that's not a reason to believe it's fake, because that drop shadow to the right only appears once you actually select a character. There is no drop shadow before you select the character. So don't take that as a reason for it to be fake. Honestly, yeah, this checks out so far, but I'm not going to jump on the real train just yet. If it is real, I will preface this by saying I'm happy for you Rayman fans. Good for you guys, but I sure don't want it to be real. I'm not a Rayman fan, at least in terms of him being in Smash. I kind of hope this isn't real, but if he is, I'm happy for you guys.
All right, well, we'll get more to that, our exact feelings on this very soon. But yeah, I kind of agree with you, Ash. I mean, when I first saw this, I'm like, it has to be fake. I mean, it's we've seen so many of these type of mock-ups, and it's a character select screen. It's the easiest thing to mock up. I mean, and I say that relatively, but it's way easier to mock this up than a video of Rayman being played in the game. But the more I look at it, the more convincing it becomes. I mean, for any number of reasons. First off is the fact that, going back to the Duck Hunt and Bowser Jr. leaks, those also were just character screen leaks, and sure enough, those turned out to be true. And, we're dealing with something here, and actually, I think these images are actually of much higher quality than we got back then, which makes it seem even more plausible. And then there's the fact that, although the pose itself, as you mentioned, Ash, is different for Rayman here, like, it is unique. That is a unique pose as far as I can tell. The model itself does seem to be based on the one we found in the trophy, that's on the trophy screen, or the trophy unlocked for it. So unless the person who created this is like super good at mimicking that model, it does seem to be the same model. Now, of course, that is entirely possible. It is possible to fake that, but it does seem unlikely at this point. And then then there's the fact that it does fit on the character screen. I mean, I think if my counting is correct, right now, the top and lower lines of the Smash Bros. Wii U character screen, there's a single space left, the easiest slot in another character. Of course, we'd have Mewtwo, so that'll fill one of that in, and that'll make it even with the rest of the lines. But then that'll make one of the lines seem really out of place, being one block shy. So I could see Nintendo just adding in a second character just to give it that perfect symmetry, And Rayman is possible. Like, it's they have worked with Ubisoft a lot, like probably one of Nintendo's best third-party partners. And with how many third-party characters are already in the game, Rayman does kind of make sense. I don't know how to personally feel about it, but actually, the more I'm talking about this right now, the more I am thinking this is real. Granted, that's not a sure thing at all. It could go either way. I'm leaning toward this being real.
Well, the problem I think most people have with Rayman being in the game isn't so much the character itself. I think it's more to do with Ubisoft, because a lot of people just have this. Ubisoft is not granting themselves any favors, especially last year with Assassin's Creed and all that. And there's that whole news that they've had a full game sitting and ready to go that they have not released for the Wii U just because of the sales data. So a lot of people were like, why should Nintendo reward Ubisoft by having one of their characters in the game if Ubisoft is acting like this? And to them, it makes no sense. But if you don't go off of that merit, you just look at the games. As we discussed before, when this whole Rayman trophy showed up, Nintendo did publish Rayman games in Japan. Mm-hmm. There is that connection there. There is a lot of... Rayman does have plenty of history. He is a well-known platformer. And, his recent games are quite excellent. So I think he has... I know before I was like... when we talked about him being the trophy, I was like, I don't know if he had the prestige over there. But reevaluating, I'm not quite sure if he has the same level of prestige as some of the third-party characters, and that's what I'm basing one on. Not the Nintendo characters, just the third-party ones. But he is more so than most other third-party characters that could pop up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I suppose you're right about that. But I mean, basing him on the other third-party characters that are in the game, I mean, he's several tiers below them, which is why he sticks out as like a sore thumb to me in terms of just his icon status and overall relevance to Nintendo. I'm not saying that Rayman isn't relevant to Nintendo. He is, but when you compare that to Sonic and Mega Man in terms of relevance to Nintendo, and then Pac-Man in terms of being an overall industry icon, he just sticks out like a sore thumb. It is not really belonging to me.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. I mean, we discussed this before, where we mentioned, or I mentioned that Rayman really does feel like his own tier of character, right?
Yeah.
Like he's not. I forget who we compared him to originally.
He's kind of in that Klonoa tier almost.
Yeah, I think that was it. Yeah, he's not. He's not obscure, like not that obscure.
Yeah.
But he's also not. He's not Pac-Man, Mega Man, or Sonic. Now, to be completely fair to Rayman, if we contextualize this purely in terms of like the modern era, I would say he's actually more relevant than some of those characters. But again, in the grand scheme of things, I mean, he definitely doesn't compare to those other three. Like, I mean, it doesn't even matter what Sonic, Mega Man, or Pac-Man are up to these days. The fact that they've existed in the forms that they have for as long as they have, I think gives them the merit alone of being in this game.
Right.
But if we broaden the scope of that and compare it to, if we take the roster as a whole, Rayman doesn't seem that far out of place. I mean, there's a bunch of like B-tier Nintendo characters on here,
right? But they're Nintendo characters,
so
they get to be yeah.
So it's kind of weird. So I don't know. I mean, I guess Asho, are you like kind of fundamentally opposed to him being in the game? Then, like, I guess if this turns out to be true, what is your reaction going to be?
Just kind of like, I'm not gonna be one of those. I'm not the kind of person to be an angry internet fanboy. And how dare you, Nintendo? This is my game. No, it's their game. They can do whatever they want. It's all about profit in the end. If people want Rayman in, he's going to be in, and that's fine. I'm personally not the biggest fan of it, but it's not up to me, and I'll be happy for his fans, basically.
I'm excited for him on the basis of, I think his moveset could be really cool. Mm-hmm. He has a lot of abilities that would fit well in Smash Brothers. His limbless arms, he could reach out and grab people. He has, he can spin his hair around to fly. He has the fast run. He has all these different abilities, and even his different colors have been covered in Rayman Legends and all that they could, use that with. So I'm kind of excited. Like, if he is real, I will definitely play him out. He might even become one of my favorites, just if going off the ideas I have in my head. Mm-hmm. But that's the question: is this real? And that's, I know there's a lot of convincing evidence in here, but I just don't know. And especially since somebody already asked the Smash Brothers announcer Xander Mobus, about this, and he replied with basically, somebody's like, somebody asked him, "Did you do the Rayman voice yet?" And he responded, "Is Rayman in the game?"
Right.
a lot of people take that as
Deconfirmation.
It's deconfirmation.
Yeah.
He's not. Rayman's not in the game, though he could be playing coy. We don't know. He's those the non-disclosure agreements are a hell of a thing.
Right, but some people would argue the fact that he responded at all suggests that regardless of what he said, the fact that he responded to this confirms he's not in the game because they think that he wouldn't be able to say anything at all. And that's possible. But he also didn't say anything. He literally said nothing.
Well, and if he hadn't responded, people would be taking that as confirmation that Rayman is in the game. So I don't think that you can really put too much stock in anything he says. Not because he's trying to fool anyone, but because we all know how these things work. He's under crazy NDAs. There's no way he's going to say anything that's going to endanger his job or risk pissing off Nintendo. So I think he pretty much said the only thing he could have, other than just saying nothing at all. And I guess that is a point. But again, if he had said nothing, people just would have said, "Oh, well, he didn't say anything. That means he's in the game." So There's also a possibility too that he hasn't recorded it yet. Who knows? I mean, I would presume that Nintendo planned this far enough in advance that he had recorded at the time he did everything else. But you never know. Like, this could be a last minute thing, relatively. And right.
Maybe he hasn't even gone back to record anything yet. He may be under no further NDAs. Who knows at this point?
Right.
So this whole thing is very interesting. But Derek, you mentioned how Rayman would probably play pretty uniquely. And we do know that Sakurai, that is a huge point of that's a huge point of emphasis that Sakurai has mentioned numerous times now. That's one of the first things they look for in a character. Like, will they fit in and will they play uniquely? Like, will they stand out from the rest? And I do think Rayman will, fits within that paradigm. Especially considering, like, he also looks very unique too. Like, he has no limbs. He would be a unique addition to the cast. Whether or not that's a good addition is another question.
Well, who else would be a unique addition to the cast?
What?
The Chorus Kids.
That's true. Well, I guess that's another point. Another good point, though. So
yeah.
Well, okay. So this is kind of weird. You can take this multiple ways, actually. So if we take this to be true, we now know that there will be a shop for the game. And so far, the only stuff they could put on there would be, I guess Mewtwo makes sense if you didn't get him in the pre-order bone, or if you didn't register your game. Right. You can purchase them separately. And then Rayman. Now, if you take the character selection screen as being a final thing, there's no more room for characters. Now, they could always shrink them down further, add more lines, I guess. But so far, it seems like there's no easy way to slot in more characters. So that would suggest there's going to be no more. But conversely, that shop does hint at the fact that maybe there will be more, or at the least there'll be other kinds of DLC, like more stages, perhaps. Do you guys have any thoughts on that, or?
I mean, I'm not too surprised about that. I figured from the beginning that there would eventually be a shop. I mean, and there was even there were even lines in the code that people found, and I think in Smash 3DS.
Right.
That proved that there was a shop coming. They had the text for the shop already in the game, or the menu text for the shop. So I figured that was coming, from the beginning, and that it would probably have things like stages and maybe additional costumes, things like that. But you do make a good point about the character select screen really only having room for 2 more characters, at least at the current size of the character boxes. I mean, they could always scale down more. But it does, I mean, they're already fairly small. I don't know how much more they could actually scale them down.
Yeah, right. You won't be able to see them on the gamepad anymore.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know, unless they add a second page, but that just seems like something Sakurai wouldn't do because it's a little sloppy.
It is. It definitely is. Well, like even playing like the older Smash games like Brawl, like how they had the different characters or different screens for the stages. That was a little bit clunky too. It is. I much prefer having everything on one. So
yeah, exactly. So, but I mean, the same could be said about the stages, and that I feel like is a little different because you could easily, separate stages between like past games and current games or whatever. But
that's true, which you haven't done yet.
They haven't done that, and I mean, there aren't. I don't know how many more stages you could feasibly fit on the current screen, before they just get too small per box. But yeah, I mean, it's not too surprising that there's a shop coming. How much it'll actually offer in terms of how much DLC there will actually be it seems to be the real question here.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what they'd offer in this shop other than the stages and the costumes. I think costumes are a little bit more likely. For some reason, I'm not quite sure if they'll put in a lot of new stages because we still have that Miiverse stage coming. We haven't heard a word about that. That's the thing. We haven't really heard anything out of Nintendo about any of these editions, whether it's Miiverse or Mewtwo. We have no time frame for release on any of these, so it's hard to really gauge like what we can expect and when we can expect it. Does this potential leak indicate that we could see the DLC finally hit soon in all these editions? I don't know. But it's still something to be taken note of, and as we've seen before with a lot of Nintendo products recently, the DLC offerings have been really good. So I'm very curious to see if they do offer DLC options for Smash, what form they'll take.
I mean, I said before, it'd be really dumb of Nintendo to not do DLC for Smash, simply because that is a guaranteed revenue stream. If not on, at least at Mario Kart levels, even beyond, perhaps. I think a lot of people would be happy to spend a few bucks for new characters or stages, and I think regardless of whether this image is real or not, I think a shop is coming, so along with some DLC. Obviously.
Well, and here's another question for you guys: what do you think about, if this is real, what do you think about how Mewtwo looks? What do you think of his character render?
That's a good one. Well, you're the Pokemon guy, Derek.
I mean, it looks very similar to what they showed off initially. I mean, it's definitely a bit of a higher quality, I think, but I like the look of it. That's the thing. I like the look of both of these renders. Rayman's eyebrows look a little thick, but honestly, I don't really look at his face that much when playing the game, and he's so tiny when you look at him in Legends that maybe his eyebrows just are that thick. I have no idea.
I looked at the trophy, and they do seem to be a similar thickness.
Yeah, but Mewtwo himself looks great,
yeah.
And you were talking before, Ash, about how you'd like to see the chorus kids. Well, it's that whole stipulation that the character roster must be the same between 3DS and Wii U is probably what's keeping them and Ice Climbers from being DLC.
Oh, the 3DS one strikes again.
Yep. So that's probably why we aren't seeing them as DLC characters as much as everybody would like them. I think people would forgive Ice Climbers or Chorus Kids being only available in the Wii U version, as long as we actually get to play them.
Right.
All right. Well, do you guys have any final thoughts at all, or anything you want to bring up that we haven't touched on yet before we wrap it up here?
Just a couple of things, Derek. If this is real and you do actually get good with Rayman, I'm going to get even better with Mega Man, so that just out of principle. because I can't let that go unpunished.
That's a challenge now. I think I might have to, if this is real, I think that's we might have to throw down.
Right, yeah. And I also just wanted to say that I think it's deliciously ironic that Rayman's presence in the game might be based entirely on DLC. In terms of Ubisoft, in general, and their overall. I just think that's amazing. Really ironic. Yeah,
that is kind of great. That is very fitting.
I know you didn't want to edit this, but I just found something else, Andre, about how the flames in the background of the character select screen don't carry over between Sonic and Rayman.
What do you mean don't carry over?
How in the game the flames in the background of the character select screen are all one continuous image.
Right.
They appear not to be continuous from in the slots next to Rayman, basically.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So on the box of the character selection screen, the flames don't seem to line up with the rest.
Yeah, exactly. Especially the Mii flames. If you look at the Mii box next to the right of Rayman, they don't seem to match up at all.
Oh, that's interesting. That is a point against it. I think I might actually just keep rolling. I might not edit this at all. But this
okay.
So people can hear all the how the raw, unedited version of our discussions. That is interesting. Wow. That would be a point against it, assuming that's true. Now, granted, I think it's hard to tell with flames exactly.
Sure. Yeah.
But looking at it, I can kind of see that. But I can also, I'm looking at the right side of Mewtwo, and I think that kind of matches up too at the same time. So it's
true.
It's hard to say.
The main part doesn't match up to me. What I thought was the Rayman and Mii boxes.
Right.
But Sonic doesn't match up perfectly, though. So I don't know. This could go either way. It's definitely not. We can't take this as an absolute disconfirmation, but it is interesting to note.
Yep, that is a good point. So that could be a point against it. So
yeah, and credit for that goes to NeoGAF, by the way. I of course didn't find this myself.
All right, anything else, guys, or is that it?
I guess I'm back to my wait and see approach because again, I don't think this is true, but I'm always willing to admit that when I'm wrong.
Yeah.
So Derek, if we end up getting a video of Rayman in action tomorrow, are you going to do the same thing you did before and still say it might not be real, or?
Did I say that when I saw when we had video?
You were so in denial about it, dude.
You were notoriously resistant to those leaks. Like, even when we had video evidence. Or sorry, was it video? Yeah, video evidence.
Yeah, we had video of it, yeah.
I don't even remember because, well...
I think
obviously
it was more
didn't matter
I mean,
that
you
much.
were like just against the idea in general, so you just wouldn't accept it as reality.
Yeah, you were notoriously like not believing it, even though we had video evidence.
I just don't want to get my hopes up.
Fair enough.
All right. Well, yeah, I think that about wraps it up here. So ultimately, this will be interesting to see what happens here. You know, and even if Rayman isn't my first choice for, you know, another third-party character, it's still another character coming to an already great roster in Smash Brothers. So I'm just excited to see, you know, how he's going to play, if this is real, of course, and you know, just getting used to another character. So ultimately, again, while I might prefer someone else, this is only good news if it's true. Alright, well, I think that wraps it up for us here, so thanks guys for watching. If you liked our discussion, make sure to like and follow us on Facebook and Twitter at GameXplain, which you can find links to in the description below. It's a good way to keep up to date on everything we post. And of course, keep an eye on GameXplain.com for perhaps more on this rumor at some point, and other things gaming as well. Alright, thanks guys. Bye.